hey, there's all these very interesting people that cross through the New Foundry network. What if we had a microphone for that conversation? How the frontier is the outer edge of the wave, which is the meeting point between savagery and civilization. The cowboy is like the wave rider.
The whole point of venture is that by a big infusion of capital up front, you're going to create a completely outsized business. I think some of the pitches we had early on were ironically just too modest. Like the folks who were pitching us is like, this is a solid business, but this is not going to be an enormous business, and that's what we actually need for venture scale.
Also, Josh and I just got back from El Salvador, the land of the philosopher king, Bukele himself. On our first night there, we spent a little bit of time in the afternoon and also in the evening walking around the city. Clemans, you want to tell us a little bit about what sorts of things we saw there?
Sure. Yeah, no, it was interesting. I don't know about you, one thing that struck me in El Salvador is the presence of American brands. So I maybe went out into the jungle a little bit more than you, but like going out, by the way, Lake Ilopango has it's a volcanic crater and has active vents coming up from the bottom. And so the water is warm in the lake. And we did jet skis. So it was like full on Paralandra level. It was very cool. It was very cool. Yeah. But awesome. Driving out there.
Have you done any deworming since then, or removing the parasites or anything like that?
I have not. I didn't even think about it. It's probably like something growing inside me. Bust out.
It's getting bigger. It's getting bigger.
Yeah. But driving out there is like you see the local folks, and what you would expect of just folks like kind of living more outside of the city in rural Central America. But in San Salvador, you land, you go into San Salvador, and the nice big buildings like McDonald's, Pizza Hut, Starbucks. So that was, I haven't traveled in Central America as much. That was surprising to me to see the big US brands. And also like strangely, like just Uncle Sam's presence was very strongly felt, but from like a consumeristic perspective. And so that was kind of, in a way, I felt like a little messed up in that I think the sort of the Buffetts and the Mungers of the world took American like consumerism and maybe some of the more negative senses and just said, hey, let's export this. Let's sell the Aztecs Coca-Cola, you know? And I think probably a better scenario is exporting US technology that is positive, like positive. So I'm like, we should be giving them, geothermal energy and nuclear reactors and like things that actually build amazing infrastructure and amazing society. We could have given them, or we could have exported to these countries really interesting tech. Instead, we exported like McDonald's and Pizza Hut. I don't even eat pizza. No, people I know in the U.S. don't even eat Pizza Hut because it's so like fatty and nasty.
On my flight to El Salvador and also back, the people next to me, both times ordered Coca-Cola from the flight attendants. And then when we were out there in San Salvador, it was mostly brands like Starbucks, McDonald's, these sorts of things. But there was also this one big glass tower, and on the top it said Google. Yep. Right. And so there's at least a little bit of technology there. But I don't know, for all I know, they're doing customer service or something like that. I don't know if they're developing the latest AI technology there.
What kind of technology?
Yeah. So one other thing that we noticed while we were out there is just the amount of armed
I was going to ask, what's this? Obviously, safety is a big theme around El Salvador. How was it?
Yeah, it felt incredibly safe. I don't know if you agree. There were soldiers with assault rifles on many of the street corners, and even we saw a few kind of going by in various trucks and things like that. But overall, the sense very very much a sense of safety, I'd say, in the city.
No, it felt very safe. Very safe. Yeah, it felt safer than some American cities I could name,
Yeah.
but I won't. That we've been to in recent memory. But yeah, no, it was nice. I mean, I guess it depends on who you are. Like we saw soldiers. It felt like every block almost.
Yeah.
Armed, certainly men with rifles in uniform.
They kept sort of coming out of nowhere, and I don't think they were intentionally hiding themselves, but they were often, I think, standing in the shade. So you'd be walking down the sidewalk, and you'd sort of walk right past a doorway, and there would be just a soldier like behind the corner of the doorway or whatever, and it would just be a little bit of sometimes a little bit of a jump scare or something like that. But that's just because I'm not used to soldiers with assault rifles right behind each corner.
Yeah,
but,
we would come around a corner. We'd see a guy, an officer in front of a shop with just a shotgun on his back, and he'd give us a wave. And so I think if you're not as used to guns, that might be pretty scary. But I think coming into a place that we knew was very gang infested, and you just see sort of officers in the law and soldiers everywhere, it was nice.
That was like 2 years ago. It was the murder capital of the world, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So now you're like jet skiing in the Paralandra, lake or whatever.
Yeah, it's the murder capital of the world, and it went from that in San Salvador to their current homicide rate is 2 per 100,000. And I saw recently around the conversations about Washington D.C. and the National Guard coming in that Washington D.C. is at 27, 28 per 100,000, right? So we have more than 10x the homicide rate in our capital versus theirs.
It's down.
It's down. Yeah. I saw it was down some percentage. The D.C. police the police union put out a report that across a few different metrics, down 30%, down 40% in the last 7 days since the National Guard came in.
Related to this though, you texted me that I think was it the first maybe Uber or taxi driver that you guys took. You asked them like, "Do you like Bukele?"
Yeah.
What was your Did you talk to locals? Did you ask them like what their perception is?
My Spanish is not excellent, so I believe I asked "Te gusta Bukele?" and our Uber driver, this Salvadorian lady, she responded "Sí." And she responded with enthusiasm, but maybe moderate enthusiasm, I would say. There's also a language barrier. I don't know what else you'd add, Clemens.
No, I think that was it. She was like, "Oh yeah, sí gusto." I don't know. She was just like this crazy American, and just like
something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Santiago, you wrote about a year and a half back the famous vibe shift essay. You sort of popularized the term vibe shift. And you were invited on Tucker's show to talk about the vibe shift. So we're about a year and a half past this. What sort of looking back on that? What did you say in that essay that you think has come about? What have you seen shift since you wrote that essay? And is the vibe shift? Is it accelerating? Is it slowing down? What are you seeing among founders, investors, and just people you're interacting with?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I think a lot of it accelerated and came true. Primarily in the essay I laid out like what the vibe shift would manifest as, and it was a return to courage, to reality, to ambition, to amongst other things, like even certainly loving your country, loving your people, a deeply, I think, a masculine bent to a lot of these things also that was hyper demonized, even still today, but certainly 18 months ago, whatever. The question is still out on like I think it's evolved, and like how does the vibe shift become does it become permanent essentially?
Yes.
There's still a lot of data coming out. So I wrote the essay when that Financial Times article came out. That was basically, there was a big graph everybody was talking about on Twitter. Women across the world, young women were becoming more liberal. Young men across the world were becoming more right-wing. I wrote the essay then. We've only seen that data increase and widen. I think there's, like young guys in general. There's charts. You're the chart guy, but there are many things that are. You're the chart. You and biology should do a pod at some point where you just trade graphs and charts.
We just pull up graphs and comment.
Comment on this one. But so that data, I think, is continues to come out and show that demographic widening or gap between the two continues to increase, and things like the chart that you posted that went all over the place, including All In, accelerate that. I think that, so you can talk about your chart in a second, but those are the things I think continue. Like the vibe shift was sort of the realization, like, hey, we don't have to. We can stop pretending. Like there's a group of people that see the insanity, don't want to say anything because they don't want to rock the boat. Then there's the I'm done pretending. That's the initial vibe shift. Where it leads and how permanent it becomes, I think I talked to Tucker briefly about this. I think fundamentally, for it to become permanent, there's a spiritual component to it. But that has manifestations socially, culturally, and politically in between.
Can I read from the essay? I'll read a short excerpt.
Sure. Yes.
So you wrote back in February 2024, the vibe shift I'm talking about is the speaking of previously unspeakable truths, the noticing of previously suppressed facts. I'm talking about the give you feel. I'm talking about the give you feel when the walls of propaganda and bureaucracy start to move as you push. The very visible dust kicked up in the air as experts and fact checkers scramble to hold on to decaying institutions. The cautious but electric rush of energy when dictatorial edifices designed to stifle innovation, enterprise, and thought are exposed or toppled. And I'm curious what specific examples of those things you've seen, maybe even since you wrote that essay. What sorts of edifices and enterprises that have been exposed or toppled?
I mean, the ones that come to mind, there's so many, but the big old whatever you want to call it, Christmas 2024 drama around like immigration, H-1B. That was a almost unfathomable topic to like bring up and discuss with any kind of depth, regardless of which side of the aisle you were on or which side of the issue you were on. And that's one. I mean, it's even simple things like Elon had a tweet, this was 4 or 5 months ago, which is like, he's like, we're training Grok. Like, what's an important, but I forget exactly how to phrase it, but it was like, we're training Grok. What's an important, but unpopular truth that you know that is for a fact true that we should take into account as we're training? Like the replies to that across a wide range of subjects, most of those would have gone to banned from Twitter 18 months before, fired from your job, and just the very fact that he's throwing like a little, gravity will say like throw your spicy opinions or your previously unspeakable opinions here was interesting. A lot of it has happened obviously in tech. The self-censorship that was pervasive across the industry is slowly coming down. I think there's issues with that as well, but just the tech for such a long time, and not all of tech is the same, but a certain portion of tech had to either keep these things in the DL or not say what they really believed. When it came to basic things like, again, nation versus state, human biology, the very sort of fabric of reality, the trans issue, girls and boys sports, those kinds of things. The fact that those can even be discussed now it's kind of like after COVID. Like COVID happens, everyone's like, this is insane. Now we forgot that COVID was a thing and it's only been like 3 years. The vibe shift, now we can talk, like Twitter has become the okay corral for like opinions, but like 18 months ago, half the stuff you see out there you couldn't say at all. You would get nuked or fired or both if you even hinted at these kinds of things. Memes is the big one too.
Yes, yeah. So Clemans, you recently have done some writing on your sort of distant relation, your ancestor, a great man of spirit who fought in Rhodesia. He fought with the Rough Riders, fought Indians as well. Sort of traveled across the globe. I would say he was somebody who went on many expeditions and many adventures. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
Yes, yeah. Now, Frederick Burnham is, I learned recently, is a distant relation. And a relative sent me a summary of his life, and I thought, there's no way, some Facebook aunt made all this up. This isn't real. And so I dug into it. That's
a great Facebook aunt to have, by the way. That's not the kind of.
Yes, I assumed it was it's something that people pass around on Facebook. Like, look, we're related to this person. No, but it was true. So he fought in Rhodesia. He tracked Apache Indians. He was in the Klondike Gold Rush. He was in Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders. He assassinated an African chieftain in Rhodesia. The Africans, I was actually reading his autobiography, and
He wrote a couple now.
yeah, he wrote a couple.
Yeah.
But he was at the Shingani Patrol, which is the sort of Alamo of the Rhodesian initial wars, and he was one of I think 3 survivors of that incident. But in the native accounts of him breaking through the enemy line and escaping the Shingani Patrol massacre, the natives were like, they recognized his horse and his hat, and they were like, they say he's from a tribe of white men, a great tribe of white men from over the sea. Like he's like, he's like the only American out there, and they called him the one who sees in the dark. The natives called him that because they're like the Rhodes and the British they knew that he was the scout and he was the guy who got sent out, and they're like, he can literally see in the dark and he has like magical powers. So
the goal for all of us should be to have a horse and a hat that's recognizable by the enemy.
Horse and hat is recognizable, good branding, and then also a nickname from your enemies. I feel like
A badass nickname for your enemies.
So Santiago, you're getting there with the drone cowboy aesthetic, which we've seen. It's been an aesthetic that you can see on the New Founding website. We were talking previously about how some others also are beginning to sort of adopt the ethos and some of the vibe of that art that you've made, and it's really a brand that you've created from scratch. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired it and sort of talk us through the drone cowboy concept?
A lot of that exact stuff. Yeah. So at a high level, I think it's relatively simple. The Europeans, broadly speaking, have the knight as sort of their prototypical or archetypical, like, this is what men should aspire to. This is the man that brings governance to the region, right? And in the U.S., you don't have that. You have the cowboy. So the Europeans have the knight. In the U.S., you have the cowboy. And I'm since college, I've been a big fan of Frederick Jackson Turner and his entire work on the frontier thesis, and specifically how the frontier expansion shapes the soul of the country, essentially. And the cowboy is an integral part of that. He talks about how the frontier is the outer edge of the wave, which is a meeting point between savagery and civilization. The cowboy is like the wave rider, as it were, the guy that's surfing that wave, cresting that wave. And so to the drone cowboy, is what's something that's distinctly American. It's not the knight. It's not just rockets. It's the draw to the frontier, the great second cousin removed or whatever it is. Yeah. But also, and again, related to life shift and all this stuff, I think there's a resurgence of that spirit married to emerging technologies that allow you, the frontier's been closed. The closing, I think, it's an actual event. The closing was 1903, 1909. And for a while, Fred Jackson Turner writes about this, the frontier is closed. Where do we go now? Now, a lot of these technologies, Mars being potentially the actual next frontier, seem to rekindle that same frontiersman spirit in the American man.
Yeah. What I like most about it is that a lot of Western symbolism, like you mentioned, the knight, it's always looking backwards, right? There's, in some ways, it's related to, I think, the modern draw to Catholicism that you definitely sense among young people. There's a dual return type aesthetics, right?
The Templar or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So there's the Templar knight, but then there is the cowboy. But the cowboy is a thing of the past. We have motor vehicles now. We have drones as well, et cetera, et cetera. And so what I find very inspirational about it is that the drone cowboy, it sort of accepts that the advancement of technology, right. and really it's like a positive vision for the modern adventurer, for the young man in the West today.
Well, the knight doesn't live through. I'll rephrase it. The cowboy lives through and exists during a period of extreme technological advancement, because of the frontier in American history. You have the development, the necessary development of things like the telegram or a lot of railroad technology, telephone, and the cowboy exists. He's not the knight is like in a time past where there's certainly technological advancement, but none of that kind. The cowboy is like threading that needle between being an old thing, but also because of his work, all these technologies have to sort of emerge around his work.
Yes, yeah. So Clemans, related to your ancestor, Mr. Burnham, or should I call him Sir? Was he knighted?
Yeah, so he was. Yeah, he was.
Sir Burnham.
Given medals.
Yeah, he was given medals. What is that called? There's a word for that.
He was medaled.
Yeah, he was.
medaled.
Yeah, anyways, he was. Yeah,
Based.
yeah, indeed. Yeah. So the King of England, gave him some medals.
Anything specifically from his life that really inspires you, or that and is there? Do you feel the same call to adventure?
I do feel the call. Yes.
You couldn't say no.
I could not.
No, actually, I'm kind of good.
Whether to the same degree remains to be seen.
Yeah.
No, I think again, he lived a life that seems unreal to us now because of the density of adventure and high risk endeavors that he was involved in.
Successfully, I think that's
successfully. So he, as an infant, he was. There was a large Indian massacre in Minnesota, and so his parents were settlers. His mother realized she couldn't run with the baby and outrun the Indians. She saw them coming, and so she hid him in the field under corn husks and then sprinted. And when she came back, she passed like the neighbors' houses, the neighbors' families had been slaughtered, and she came back to the corn husks, and the baby was sleeping. Baby Burnham was sleeping in the courthouse. So from that all the way to when he was a teen, he was, a messenger, a scout. He got involved with a family feud. All the things I mentioned. He struck oil in California with his son. So like Santiago said, successfully. The American frontier wasn't risky enough. He had to go to the African frontier as well, Matt Cecil Rhodes. So just the sheer appetite that he had for those adventures is just something that's more alien to us now.
I think what's excellent about him is that risk taking is exciting, but it's not necessarily inherently virtuous. But when you sort of combine it with the ability to constantly come out on top and to sort of live this very exciting life all around the globe, and once again continuing to come out on top, that's just an extremely. He was clearly making quite calculated risks across the board.
Right. There's I think of the proverb that talks about the wise man sees danger and foresees danger and hides himself.
Yeah,
that's a man that sees risk, the kind of risk that's not productive, and the wise man hides himself from that. But then there's also the kind of risk that's very, very productive that leads to civilizational building, young men.
Yeah, I think we find that so many of the opportunities to take those risks feel closed off. I think for a lot of younger people today. Because of just...
You didn't feel that at BCG?
I know. There's a pervasive, just an ideology of safetyism. Right? That all risk is bad. And the answer, I think in reality, it's a little bit more complex. Certain risks are stupid, but most risks are awesome. And so maybe talk a little bit about what are the pathways for young people to take on risk in a way that's wise? And how can we basically knock down some of the barriers that constrain people from being able to do the sorts of things that we want to do that our ancestors did?
Yeah, I think one piece that's missing, and it's maybe more widely considered to be missing, is some of the physical element of risk. And so there is, I think it's... von Claus, who wrote On War. He talks about...
Clausewitz.
Yeah, Clausewitz. He talks about two types of courage, moral courage and physical courage. And physical courage is what you think of, willing to go into physical environments. Moral courage is the willingness to operate in conditions of uncertainty and move ahead in conditions of uncertainty. It's sort of like a spiritual willingness to take risk. And I think there are many cases where those are exist in isolation, but less opportunity for them both to exist together. I think that's what's interesting. I think there's people, let's say you're an engineer, working on AI, like, and you're holed up with your buddies. Maybe you turn into a vampire. You don't ever see the sun, but like maybe there's like a lot of moral courage that's taking place. You're making important decisions. You're taking career risk, whatever it is. But there's no physical element to that. And obviously the opposite of that is easy to imagine as well. But I think that's I think some people, when people feel that the lack of adventure, the lack of adventures like Burnham had, I think they're probably missing one of those two things.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the other thing is like the structures that allow people to take risks. Certainly the pervading like ideology of safetyism, like everything gets filtered through is this not good or evil, but is it safe or not safe? That's bad. But there's also, if you want people to take risk, you can't just move away from that. You have to give people the structures, the historical structures that are always there, that allow the risk, the taking of risk in a wise way. Family, friends, like church, like all of these things that provide a certain kind of grounding so that you can take like that frontier bet. If everyone's atomized and guys, feel like they're just demonized by the inherent want of risk or things like that, like you're going to squash that completely. I mean, there's even when you see this in the fertility crisis, I think there's a kind of risk to having children that just like, you're bringing somebody else into the world and you have to care for them for the rest of their life. Like that's risky. And so that's an abdication of risk. If you create the structures and the incentives, not create them, go back to what historically is in place, then hopefully those things, you create the platform for young guys to actually take that risk. That's natural and good.
Santiago, I've seen photos circulating of you doing some tactical firearms type, I'll call them drills. What have you been up to?
So I competed in the regional tactical games, not the national version, but there's like a regional for the West heat or event on the team division specifically. The tactical games are essentially this combination of kind of like CrossFit style workouts, like high intensity sandbags and rope climbs and stuff like that, but with the added mix of marksmanship. So typically, at least the one I did, you do pistol and rifle, and so do some kind of evolution. You go and do rowing or whatever, and then you run to a target. You pull out your rifle. You take 10 shots, and then the way the stage is scored is the fitness is like how fast can you go through the stage, but then any missed shots add 5 to 10 to 20 seconds. So you will have guys who are really, really strong, really good at fitness, terrible at shooting. That may be me. And then if you just plow through the fitness and your shooting sucks, you can still lose the stage. Or alternatively, if you're a really good shot, but your fitness isn't there, you can get outmatched by somebody that has a little bit of both.
What's drawing you to this?
That's a good question. I think partly is what Josh was saying. I mean, I think that just generally, since I was young, I've always looked for outlets for like the testing of the physical and the moral courage. Josh and I played rugby for a long time, and that was really good in college. And then we did Spartan races for a season, and then endurance events. I competed. Then I switched to like competing in weightlifting for a while, and I was basically at the stage where I was like, my capacity to get better at weightlifting is kind of capped, and almost so like don't want to destroy my knees anymore. And then my brother texted me and said, hey, there's the regional event really close to where you live, and you can get fit again. Weightlifting is fun. You can move a lot of weight, but you can't run at all. So I was like, well, I can get fit again, and then I can bring into it the other thing I really love, which is shooting. So I just generally also think it's cool for guys to know how to maneuver an obstacle, take command of a physical area, know how to shoot a weapon, those things.
So Santiago and Josh, you guys have both been leading the New Founding Venture Fund for quite a while now, and you guys have really just done an excellent job with it. And I think what you're describing is a part of the aesthetic of what you all have done, but also just like your approach, like in these competitions that you've been doing. Like I sort of see it in the ways that you guys like went out, like constantly going out to the Gundo or other places, flying all over the world, and getting a venture fund from zero to where it is today. A lot of risk taking in that, but also like you guys were very successful in this at the same time as well. So it's very exciting. We're actually in the what we call the High Tower Dallas, which is our brand name for the new founding co-working space. It's like a WeWork, but a based WeWork. It's way better. Way better. Yes. It's like that, but it's just cowboys and knights everywhere. Yeah. And Trump posters, that's off frame. Yeah. and so we have the Corps of Engineers, U.S. Army poster there. So we're in Dallas right now, and this is the beginning of the second season of the New Founding podcast, and the first episode of the second season. And I actually wanted to ask you guys a little bit, just reflecting back on sort of the venture fund getting it to where it is today, and then also the podcast getting it to where it is today. I mean, I think the first question that I have is, I've been leaning in with some of the venture stuff for a little while here, and we do get pitched on just absolutely crazy things, many awesome things, and exciting, really high caliber people as well. But like, what's the most like, exciting thing that you all have been pitched, and maybe something that we haven't talked about that isn't currently a portfolio company at this point?
That's a great question. Man, so many wild pitches. I mean, some of these are out there. Some of these, there's been a lot of stuff. I guess I'll be relatively vague. We had stuff early on at some point being pitched about like using worms to feed, flies to feed.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I do remember this.
You and I did this call together.
Yeah.
Flies to basically a breeding operation where you grow flies, so that you can feed them to animals to then get protein faster. And so instead of feeding them grain,
it was bug protein.
But it was bug protein, yeah, exactly.
I was in Costa Rica over Christmas, and I was there traveling with my brother. We had spent a lot of the day like cycling and sort of running and such, and we were stopping in at this bar, and this local came out, was talking with us. And he said that he did sort of tour guides for people. So very typical. I think he was trying to sell us on a tour. But he was a great guy. We liked him a lot. But we asked him what else he did. And he said, or we asked him what he did during COVID, and because there were no tourists. Sure. And he said that he started farming grasshoppers. And he had this line that I've never forgotten. He said, "Grasshoppers are the new Bitcoin." So he's farming and he's selling like 10,000 grasshoppers at a time to be fed to some sort of animal of some sort. I actually don't even recall what they're being fed to. Like lizards and stuff, I imagine, but like protein. And so then we started talking about the grasshopper business, and I put on my investor hat and such. But I guess that beyond sort of that one company, are there any, you guys have listened to so many pitches at this point. I've actually been sort of, again, attending them with you all. Sure. It's great. We got all these just fantastic young people who are building really cool things in America today. If there are younger people who are listening, who are maybe interested in starting a company, becoming a founder, what would you tell them, or what advice do you have for them?
I think one piece of advice would be to resist the hype. Resist the hype of becoming a founder. And if you are a founder, resist the hype of becoming a founder in a place where there are already many founders. Back to your first question related to this, there have been a lot of pitches for drones. At a certain point, everybody wants to build drones. And yeah, drones are a big problem. Like the capacity to manufacture drones, there's the EO behind it, which is great. But you can only have so many drone founders and so much capital flowing into that space. And the same effort that person A might put into the drone company, he would put into a company doing something different.
Grasshoppers.
Grasshoppers or worms. Where there's less of a crowded space, where he has a better shot at actually building that successfully, where maybe some others don't have the leg up or whatever. So I think that's the good and the bad of like, especially like Twitter, founder Twitter, is it can become its own worst enemy, like as just a mimetic gravity well where everybody wants to do the same thing that everybody else is doing, and finding a novel problem, something unique, a secret, as Thiel calls it, is really important.
Right. Yeah. I remember we came across the LinkedIn profile that the founder had started a crypto startup and then an AI startup and then a defense startup, and you could see he was obviously just tracking with the current thing, and that's what Santiago is saying, which you want to avoid. So yeah, I mean, the ideal is, and even when we're looking at founders, the ideal is it's something that you want to build for the next 20, 30, 40 years. It's a long-term project. And to think of something you actually want to build for that amount of time, it's going to be something that you actually are interested in on a pretty organic level, not just something that you're flipping, trying to flip for a quick, 100 million in 5 years or whatever it is. So if you can find something, and you're probably going to follow your natural interests to find that thing, but that'll give you insulation, that'll give you a moat because it's something that you're interested in. It's not just the latest thing. And then this is maybe a bit obvious, but if you're interested in doing a startup, read 0 to 1. That's like the handbook. And then also read Paper Belt on Fire by Michael Gibson. And he talks about a lot of things at the back of the book. He has an appendix of different problems that he wants to see solved. There's startups that we know that picked a problem out of that appendix and are
literally, we're like, oh, that sounds like
are very successful startups based on that. And then there's also a section where he talks about the traits that they look for in founders, and that'll give you a good idea of what venture capitalists look for when they're examining a startup. And a huge piece of whether your startup can be successful in some cases is if you're able to tell a story that is interesting and exciting enough to get venture capital that'll be the fuel to build that. And many sort of venture, like the center of the target for venture is businesses that actually need a large infusion of capital at the beginning, because if you didn't, we should just grow it organically and have a normal business.
Save you the headache.
Save you the headache. Like the whole point of venture is that by a big infusion of capital up front, you're going to create a completely outsized business. So consider that, and then consider doing something long term and something that can actually be big. We've had, I think, some of the pitches we had early on were ironically just too modest. Like the folks who were pitching us is like, this is a solid business, but this is not going to be an enormous business, and that's what we actually need for venture scale.
We actually had Michael on season 1 of the podcast. He was a relatively early guest, like guest 10 or so.
Mm-hmm.
So read his book, and then people should listen to that. He's on other interviews, but I thought that was a particularly good episode that we did really early on in season 1.
Any other episodes from season 1 that stand out to you guys or that really changed the way that you think?
I really liked the one with Pomp. I thought it was a really fun episode where he just lays out his strategy for barbell strategy for investing, frontiers tech on sort of one end, like very long-term play or moonshot plays, venture stuff, and then the cash flowing side of things, and how he approaches and bridges the gap.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a very fun, nuts and bolts conversation around like how to approach that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Actually, Joshua Manchester, that episode changed, especially if you're an investor, that changed how I think about investing, and I learned some good metrics and heuristics from him.
Yeah, that was great. There's a few that are really good, and
just start naming episodes.
Well, I was going to say,
let's go through.
We just did them the disservice. Like Josh Stein was always fantastic.
Yeah.
We're so early. It literally is like episode 3 or 4 that we had a crap. There was all sorts of comedy of errors when we showed up to record with him. So you should have him on again because
Steinman's a patriot.
Yeah, he's a patriot. He's a legend, and good mics and a good camera.
Yeah, I mean the Eric Prince episode. That's fantastic.
A great one.
We loved that.
Yeah, lots of good ones.
How did the podcast get started?
I think it was just that thing where we were like, we need to. I don't know if we necessarily consciously thought about it in terms of the vibe shift, but I think there was the new founding, like through the new founding network, we ran into so many interesting people all the time, especially when we started the podcast, it was under Biden and certainly under the censorship regime, all this stuff. And so we had people that, were based, and then you had like Twitter folks, like Twitter Anons, all of them sort of crossing through the new founding network in different ways. And at the same time, venture, and like it was, I think it was just mostly a function of like, hey, there's all these very interesting people that cross through the new founding network. What if we had a microphone for that conversation? And obviously asked them for permission to record, and had put it out there. And
that was the catalyst.
That was the catalyst, right?
There were so many interesting people coming through the office, and that's something that most people don't see, but is a unique factor of Nate, our founder, and just like the whole new founding ecosystem. Is there are really interesting people who come through the office, and so we just started recording. I think I remember you turning to me in our old space, was like, we need to start a podcast.
What did you say back to you? Remember?
I was like, no, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, we had some like equipment that we had, and again, it wasn't the best, but we made do initially. We had some really good guys helping us out early on to cut it and edit it, and so got to do it.
You guys are starting a new venture. So what's next for you guys?
Yeah, so moving to venture partner role at New Founding to support existing founders. And then, I guess the new venture, it's relatively, we'll keep it sort of in stealth for a while, but it touches on a lot of these themes that we've been describing.
And a lot of themes of sort of expeditionary capital, you could say. So, there's a number of companies we've invested in over the last 2 years, a lot of them in El Segundo, a lot of physical tech companies. And so, our new company will be sort of in that theme. And like Santiago said, we're in stealth right now, but a lot more to come very soon.
Can we get a little teaser on what the hats will look like, or what color horse, or horse? Anything like that?
We'll be, we'll find us in the frontier.
All right. It's very exciting. And can you say a little bit more, at least, I know still in stealth, but some of the macro thinking that has gone into this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think, so a couple things. One, sort of the global geopolitical landscape is shifting pretty dramatically. We had one sort of set of rules for operating overseas under Biden and for many, many years before that. And that's something that is shifting pretty distinctively now. And so that's something we'll be participating in. There's fantastic sort of physical tech and hard tech infrastructure companies coming out of the US that are very interesting that we want to support. And then I think more broadly, there is a big shift like many things as a result of AI, but maybe not in the way that you might think, in that the cost of the digital is plummeting in terms of how, like, the cost to actually produce something digital. It used to be, we came up in sort of the B2B SaaS era where you would hire an army of engineers to build you that SaaS product for XYZ. And it was expensive to build, but it was profitable. And now, we're rapidly approaching a situation where the cost to create an image or a piece of code or writing or anything is just going down. And what you see online, you don't necessarily believe by default. And so all this capital has been going into the digital, into creating SaaS companies, into creating software, et cetera. And I think on a relative basis, that's going to shift towards the physical. And so the real world, the physical is where we want to operate.
Yeah. So two parallel tracks, I would say, broadly speaking. There's the importance of rebuilding the homeland, building the country you want to live in. And then there's the opportunities that as that geopolitical table gets rearranged, the opportunities at the very edge of the frontier that appear. Two very important tracks and in parallel with each other.
All right. Can I pry anything else out of you guys, or are we gonna have to wrap it there?
We'll wrap it there, but more to come very soon.
More to come.
Excellent. Yes. Well, I'm incredibly excited about it. I especially think if it's something that's able to unlock more pathways for young people to be explorers, to do expeditionary capitalism, or even just things that are adjacent. That's extremely exciting. I mean, even in our time in El Salvador, I was excited about just opportunities for Americans to do business in these sorts of places. And so, yeah, I guess I wish you guys tremendous luck, and very excited to hear more and learn more, and I'm sure to share more with others soon. So thanks for coming on, guys.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Good. Thanks, sir.
Yeah, man.
So. Thanks for listening to this episode of the New Founding podcast. New Founding has become a rallying point for founders and investors who are taking serious bets in the face of a stagnant business culture. Our venture fund backs early-stage startups focused on critical civilizational problems. If you're interested in pitching your company or investing in our fund, check out newfounding.com/venture and follow the link to apply. You can also follow us on X @newfounding and @NAT Halberstadt, HALBERSTADT.